The paranormal is an enigma. Since the dawn of our species, things that seem outside the realm of understanding have been dubbed supernatural. Over time, science have helped us measure, predict, and quantify this reality, yet there are still unsolved mysteries and unexplained phenomena that plague our attempts to rationalize this world. Ghost sightings, near-death experiences, and the psychic phenomenon, just to name a few, are among the subjects science dismisses as flaws in perception, hallucinations, and outright delusions. During this program, we attempt to bridge the gap between diverse viewpoints and air out the opinions of experienced individuals in the fields of investigation, metaphysics, and skepticism. Welcome to the Supernatural Symposium. Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Symposium. I'm your host, Justin Brown, and I am presenting episode 5 tonight. We're already 5 in, and we have a brand new panel for you guys tonight, and we're going to be talking about applying the scientific method to paranormal investigation. And I know that that is very controversial and debatable among some, and I like talking about this certain topic because there's a lot of pros and cons to applying science to such things. So I can't wait to hear what my panel has to say about it. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it. If you are new to this show, here's how it works. If you have a question that pops into your head throughout the show, you can ask questions in the comments. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, just go ahead and jot it down in the comments section. Our chat moderators will be monitoring and writing down your questions and keeping track, and we'll ask those questions to our panel periodically through the show. So please be patient. Please keep it civil and respectful and classy in the comment section. If not, you'll be put in jail. I'm sorry. And please feel free to share this live video to your friends or other people that might be interested in the paranormal. Skeptical or believers, it doesn't matter. We all need to, all opinions are welcome here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the panel real quick, and we're going to one by one introduce themselves. Vanessa, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Let everybody know what you do and what you're here to talk about.
What the hell? Why not? Hi, I'm Vanessa Hogel, author, medium, remote viewer, clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, declares. Just go ahead and put them in there. Declares. I pretty much do all of that. I have since I was about 2, increasingly throughout the years. It didn't all start out that way. Worked on almost 400 cases in the last 4 years, and teams all over the world. That's me.
Awesome. So are you ready to talk about the application of science to the paranormal? Does that interest you at all?
It really does. It really does. Do you want me to explain why, or you want to go ahead and introduce everybody else?
We're going to let the introductions roll, and then I'm definitely going to ask you why.
Okay.
Melissa, what is your role? What is your role today? And what do you do?
What is my role today? I am a paranormal investigator. I run TNT Paranormal out of Florida. I've been doing this about 11 years. I was on 2 teams previously to starting TNT, and I've worked with about 300 clients over the years. And what my viewpoint is I call myself a skeptical believer. So I believe in the paranormal. I've seen things I can't explain, but I'm also skeptical of each thing that comes to me. So I try to get to the bottom of it, trying to help clients get the answers they're looking for.
Awesome. So the topic is right up your alley then.
Yeah.
All right. So I picked the right person. I've been waiting to bring you on this show. I know I brought it up to you a while ago. So thank you very much for coming on the show. I know you've been insanely busy. And I know that you're doing me a favor tonight, so I appreciate it.
Thanks for asking me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, last but not least, we have Nabu Augustine from India. Okay, now Nabu, we have never spoke before. We have never met, but we had connected in a skeptic, science-loving skeptic group. And based on my preliminary surface research of how I would profile you, is you're an atheist, I think would be safe to say, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I guess safe to say I'm an atheist. There's a 7-point scale, so I put myself at 6.5 or something.
Okay, well that's great. I'm glad that we have you on the show. Do you believe in the paranormal? Have you ever experienced the paranormal?
I have to say never.
Okay, so you are obviously skeptical about ghosts, about psychic abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, what you usually considered as paranormal, but I've had kind of this belief in aliens. So, and also I have considered the possibility that aliens kind of involve can interfere in day-to-day activities if needed. So that's something I've considered in the past. But yeah, that's
okay.
As far as paranormal goes.
All right. So real quick, what do you do? What's your day job?
I used to work as a content writer at some of they call it IT parks in India. So just like Silicon Valley, we have got Info Park. And I think you know about Bangalore. So I think everyone knows about Bangalore. So yeah, I used to work as a writer the couple of years. And then now I'm freelancing. So that's it. I'm freelancing at home. So in India, it's like maybe a bit like US, a lot of commute and stuff. So and it's easier to work from home. So
yes.
Maybe I'm a bit lazy.
Maybe you'll have something to write about after this show.
Yeah. Who knows? Like,
all right. Well,
something positive.
All right. This is how this show's going to go tonight, fellas. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of applying scientific principles and methodologies to paranormal research, paranormal investigation. Why is that good? Why is that bad? Is it possible? Is there problems with doing that? All of those things we're going to discuss tonight. And I think I'm going to start off with Melissa Tanner. I know she's been, fighting the good fight. I respect her work. She's been trying to do everything that I see possible to apply science, critical thinking, and everything that you should do if you're, claim to be a science-based investigator. So, Melissa, what is it? Do you think that we should be applying science based on your current knowledge and your standpoint now? Do you think it's more good than bad, or the other way around?
Well, instead of using the word science, I'm going to change it up on you, Justin, and say I believe we need more procedures and policies for groups to follow, because not everybody does it the same right now. So, like, if you tried to take this to, like, if you were doing something in science and you went to a chemist and you were having them break down the breakdown of a certain, set of particles or a solution, they all would follow the same process for the most part. And I don't think we have that in our field yet. And that's one thing that is missing, I think, is the common practice that we all would use to get to that result. So that said, I come from an IT background, and so I tried to use my training in my field, because keep in mind, paranormal investigators don't get paid. We do this for free on our own time and everything. And so I do have a day job. And so I try to take those principles and I created process and procedures that my team follows as we investigate. Keeping track of the data. So I actually wrote a database, and every client case we've ever worked on, the same type of data is calculated and entered in, so then I can compare, So like one of the theories is that moons, like the moon cycle, can make activity more so. Well, I keep track of that, and over time found that's not necessarily the case. And so it's just stuff like that. I also don't call it evidence. If we find something that we believe is paranormal, I call it data. We're collecting data. We've not been able to prove the paranormal yet that could stand on its own 2 feet, if you will. But we keep a lot of logs. Everything is tracked, and all that's put in this database so that we can look at later. Does that start to answer your question, I think?
Yes, it does. So basically what I get from what you said is we need standardization for procedures and protocol for when we investigate. So, we can get data that's consistent so we can cross-check, find what is anomalous, what is normal, and go from there. And you seem like, you're just collecting data to try to find what is anomalous and narrow down what is not anomalous so you can, do the debunking stuff. So that's pretty much right.
Yeah, and one of the first things I tell a new team member is we are documenting to see if we found the paranormal, but we're not trying to find the paranormal, if that makes sense. So we're not going out and every bump is paranormal. We're trying to document to see what we can rule out and what we include, in our information.
Yes, you're very objective.
Yes.
Awesome. I knew that about you, Melissa, believe it or not. All right. Let's switch over here to Vanessa. And from a psychic's point of view, a metaphysicist, as I like to say, you applying whether science or some type of procedural thing so you can be objective, not trying to get your emotions and beliefs mixed in. Is there value in that? Do you agree with that? What's your take on it?
I do agree with it for different reasons. I believe that if we do have not necessarily a set way of doing things, but if we do have a checks and balances system for people like myself who don't use all the equipment, I'm the gal the people with the equipment bring in. Okay, so the people with the equipment, when they're investigating alongside me and I don't have any knowledge of the area, whatever I get and am giving to them, through my verbiage, what I'm telling them, they have the checks and balances system. They can say, okay, well, we have this, and that kind of gives that weight, or we're not getting this. And so we don't know where you're coming from with that. The thing about me, I hope this doesn't sound bad because I don't mean it to. I don't seek nor do I require validation. When I give a reading, it's the reading I got. Mm-hmm. If it works for the area, that's great. If it doesn't, okay, I'm not going to change it based on what the equipment says. That's just the way that I roll. I can't lie about what I got, nor can I change it to fit somebody else's agenda or what they want to believe. So it is what it is. But I absolutely agree with bringing in a methodology or a way of doing things, or like I said, a checks and balances that makes it a more even playing field. That it doesn't allow people to just come in and say whatever they want to say, and everyone just takes it as gospel, and it scares the hell out of people, homeowners, business owners, whoever. If I'm not being truthful, and if I can't stand up to the criticism, then I'm not doing my job.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. What I use people like yourself and sometimes myself, you're an independent variable in the investigation. Mm-hmm. There is going to be data, information, feedback from yourself, and it's going to be inputted into the rest of the data. Whether it cross-checks or not, that's to be seen.
Exactly. And I mean, like, for me, I mean, I'm kind of along the same lines. I'm not out there to prove the paranormal exists, but I do vary it just a little bit. I don't care if anybody believes what I say. I tell everybody, if you feel like you have to, fact check me. I don't care. I don't care. That having been said, I know based on my experience, it does. That's all I need to know.
Right.
I'm not putting it out there to prove it to anybody else. I welcome skepticism. I welcome criticism. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into whether there's value in what we're doing to validate objectively whether there's paranormal phenomena or anomalous things going on very, very soon in this conversation, but not right now. We're going to switch over to Naboo now. Now, Naboo, you're not someone who is immersed in paranormal topics much all the time. I know that you have a standpoint on theology and religion, but try to relate that to the topic of the show and what we're talking about. What is your viewpoint? Now, if someone came to you and said, hey, I seen the apparition of this little child at the end of my hallway, what would you do in that circumstance? Why would you be skeptical of it, and what would be the process that you would take to try to figure out why they would report that?
Yeah, I think it's the same reason. The same reason why I reject God or religion, because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So if you are the one making the claim, the burden of proof is on. That's the usual stuff you hear on atheism. Like if you make a huge claim that you have this big God, or you have whatever your religion is, even if it's Hinduism, and say that the guy with the elephant nose and all that stuff happened and stuff, that's like a huge claim. So every time you go down the street, I'm pretty sure that you won't meet a paranormal or a paranormal experiencing person on the street. Like, it's not something that's so common, right? It's extremely rare. So the same stuff. Like it's an extraordinary claim. So you need to provide the evidence to back it up. So I think that's my one issue that comes up in my mind.
Right. So basically what you're telling me is a lot of people have claims, a lot of people experience things, but the burden of proof is, they need to be able to validate it to somebody else with actual physical evidence, something, you would have to be able to go and experience the same thing they experience, and then you could go from there. Then you can, start a process of trying to figure out why that phenomena or that thing is actually happening. Because in a lot of cases, people are experiencing things that are actually happening that they don't understand, but it does not mean that it has a paranormal origin or a source. Yeah. It could be carbon monoxide leaking into their home, causing them to feel strange, dizzy. It could be some psychological thing or an interaction between their medicines. There's a lot of things that you should look for until you start calling things paranormal, right?
Yeah, but those things are easily identifiable. Just like you said, if you put carbon monoxide with any animal or any kind of human or whatever it is, it's almost the same scenario. Within 5 minutes, you might get dizzy, and that's universal. You can observe it easily. It's easily observable. You can quantify it. You put more carbon monoxide in, you can see it through science. Like you put more carbon monoxide, you lose your consciousness faster. So compared to that, paranormal activities almost claims that they have this kind of power, but it's just that they can't provide any kind of evidence. You would have to believe it on faith. So that's the issue.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. So pretty much you think that applying this type of thinking and approach to the paranormal is a good thing. You need those procedures and ways of thinking there in order to investigate the claims. You would agree with that?
Again, the word paranormal, I've not done a lot of investigation to it, but isn't it just another word for? The other area I think that hasn't been explored by science. Mm-hmm. So whereas paranormal seems more like something out of the ordinary is what comes to my mind. So I guess it can be investigated by science. That something calls it paranormal, that is scientific. So it's science. I'm someone who believes that everything is science. Even mm-hmm. art is science. So if you look at a painting and whatever feeling you have in your brain, that's scientifically quantifiable. So I don't see the distinction. So even the paranormal can be investigated by science, but once science comes up with the evidence, I guess people have to make a call on it.
Right, and that's a good point that I'm going to bring up to the panel here. The very definition of paranormal states that it's outside the scope of scientific understanding. And I've always felt like that was incorrect, just because we do not see how the paranormal correlates with scientific principles, physics, even at the quantum level, doesn't mean that it can't be applied. And I've seen a lot of arguments in the para field, stating that because the very definition of the paranormal says that it's beyond the scope of this, scientific explanation and understanding, you can't apply it. And I think that is a major conundrum. I don't know. Melissa, what do you think? Before we go to the chat and the comments and everything, what is your viewpoint on that statement?
Well, I don't think there's like an easy answer, and of course everybody in the field has a different viewpoint on things. But to kind of go to Naboo, probably what you're used to hearing is like jinn. So for me, we investigate the paranormal. I try to tell people, Justin, it's ghosts and spirits, because the paranormal is more than just that. It could be cryptids, it could be UFOs, as Naboo mentioned earlier. And so I do think that there are times that things are happening that we haven't either found the technology to document it yet, or it's happening. There's people that believe there's multi-dimensions. So some of the paranormal activity might be happening in a dimension that we aren't able to pick up for some reason. So I think there's a lot of theories out there. For me personally, all I can tell you is there is things I have seen and heard that for some reason the technology we use now did not pick it up. But I know it happened to me. I know that those things happen, and maybe I'll never be able to document it like how protons are documented, but we're trying our best to do that. So I don't know, Justin, if that kind of is what you're kind of going on the lines for, but for me, I just know for a fact that I've had experiences that for some reason the equipment did not pick up.
Right. Yeah. And this is a very difficult topic to kind of navigate through a debate type format or type of discussion. I guess what we'll eventually get at is there are flaws in human perception. There are, shortcomings. That's why the objective nature of science helps in that regard. Sometimes our eyes play tricks on us, sometimes our mind plays tricks on us, sometimes our memory fails us when we go to report things. That's why it's nice to record things, write down the data very systematically, so you can go through it like a scientist would, or someone who is more aligned with that line of thinking. But with that being said, like you were saying, there might be things that we don't understand yet, dimensionally, physics, stuff like that. So there might be some wall we'll run into where we can't apply science to it. So
right.
That's
well, and just to add to that, Justin, basically, if one of my team members has an experience on an investigation that we could not document, we call those personal experiences. We don't call it proof of anything. We document it, so it's documented, but we wouldn't present that to a client as, say, proof that something happened. It was someone's personal experience that happened at the location.
A lot of people don't do that, though. There's problems. And like you said, if it was more standardized and, paranormal research and investigation was a secular thing, we might be in a better place, maybe, in my opinion. Vanessa, we're going to go to you. What's your standpoint on the shortcomings of using science to explain the paranormal? Because I actually like that endeavor, but sometimes it feels like we're just not anywhere near the point of understanding it scientifically. Plus, a lot of the people like ourselves doing this don't have the knowledge or the resources to do it. What's your take on it?
Well, little story as to why I disagree with not telling clients personal experiences. I was in Ireland. I was at Ross Castle, and I was taking the tour, just a regular standard Joe tour, no big deal. Last two people of the day was me and the friend I was with. And we were with the tour guide. I knew nothing about the place, nothing. We just showed up. And I had this little woman walking next to me. Couldn't have been more than 4'11", little bitty dinky thing. Obviously, I'm the only one who can see her. And she is explaining to me everything about the castle, but in a different way than the tour guide was. And we get up to, I think it was the third floor or something like that. And I'm looking around, and I guess you could tell I was itching to start talking. And the tour guide said, well, what's going on? And I said, okay, this little woman, and I put my hand over here, and like I'm putting my hand on her head and said, she's telling me the reason that people got crazy was because they painted these plates and they had lead in them, or the plates had lead in them. This is why they did the rushes. This is why the beds were too small. This is the reason that the staircase was actually made this way, was because if somebody was coming up it, they wouldn't be able to fight and swing their sword. But if they were coming down defending, they would. And she told me all of this stuff. The tour guide's mouth literally dropped to the floor. Because I even described which pieces of the furniture came from which country that wasn't Ireland, and the time frame that they came from. And she says, there's absolutely no way you could know that. And I said, yeah, there is. And she says, well, why? I said, because this little woman's telling me. And that was all she needed to know. That verified for her, because there's no way in the world I could have known the specifics of a place you're not even allowed to photograph. Can't even photograph. And as far as the scientific aspect of it, yes, I do believe that science should be involved. Like I said, checks and balances, but we forget our own government from 1978 to 1995 was knee deep in studying remote viewing, clairvoyance, telekinesis, everything else with the Stargate project. And in 1995, I believe it was when they went ahead and put the kibosh on that project, stating that they hadn't had any evidence that would directly support remote viewing. That is almost 20 years and millions of dollars on a project that never once had any value. Seriously?
Won't be the first. It wouldn't be the last time.
Now I trained with the military. That's how I got my dental assistant license. So I know how much they waste money. Believe me. Mm-hmm. But I have been approached by people with government connections asking me if I'm registered. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm like, hell to the fucking no. No.
Well, it's your job to report your personal experience because of the role you play in paranormal research investigation. Mm-hmm. That's what you do. So I would appreciate and respect you approaching it like that, in contrast to how Melissa approaches it.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's that smallest bit of evidence, that little teeny tiny thing that lets the homeowner or the business owner know they're not crazy. It just that little thing, I've had it happen during readings where I know that I am going to sound like the stupidest person that ever walked the face of the earth if I share what I'm hearing. But if I don't, I'm doing them a disservice, because I think I told you this one the last time, Justin. At the end of a reading, this was for a woman in England. She asked me if I had any information on her father-in-law. And I just blurted out laughing. And she was crying. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And she goes, no, what is it? What is it? And I said, I see that he's on the toilet. He's fully clothed. He's in a black room with a spotlight coming down on him. And he's reading what looks like the funny papers. And I said, I don't know why he's showing me that. And she went from tears to laughter, because she said his favorite thing in the world was potty humor. Mm-hmm. And that was the best way to let us know it was him. It's those little things that we think mean nothing that can be verified by people who live at the property or work at the property or whatever. Every detail is important. And if we're going to apply science in every facet that we can, we have to apply the paranormal or the metaphysical in every facet that we can, or else it's not an even playing field. Every bit of information counts.
Right. It's data gathering. Yeah, I agree with that. Naboo, anything to add when it concerning this.
Yeah. So if what Melissa,
Vanessa was just
said,
speaking.
it's just a lot of. All right. So if what she's saying is true, then it would be, I think, a huge step in human evolution, like to experience multi-dimension, if that thing exists. Because, like, I've heard that there are possibilities of other dimensions. Physicists are saying that there are 10 or 12 dimensions. Sometimes they keep changing it because it's science, I guess. But if that is true, then it's a huge step in human evolution. Like, you're able to experience stuff that probably 99% of the planet can't. So
For the last 44 years of my life.
Yeah, so it is also possible that it's the brain, because you can have tactile and kind of visual and auditory at this, like auditory input that no one else is experiencing. That's also a possibility. So
No, you're actually right. You're actually right. I have scar tissue on my brain, and that increased the activity.
Okay, so before the scar tissue, there was no activity. Like, there was a bit of an activity.
There was plenty, but the scar tissue, the traumatic brain injury I had, kicked the door open. For the most part.
I'm not sure how that.
Let me interject just a second, Nabu. Now, there are brain injuries that do stimulate certain type of effects. In some cases, will open up different types of abilities, or in some cases enhance others, because there might be compensational things. Like, one part of the brain might have to compensate because of a disability in another part. Now, the brain's mysterious. I'm not going to bring up a lot of cases, but, there is an interesting, rabbit hole you can go jump down. But my question for you before we go to the chat is, you did mention that it would be a huge step in evolution if the brain could in fact do this. And what is interesting in my research is, when it comes to the pineal gland, you'll see the symbolism in all the way from the Egyptian culture, and you'll see it, on staffs that the Pope's using in the Vatican, that little pine cone little shaped thing. Maybe it's something that we have been, blocking. Maybe we did have this ability to see such things. You're in the East. Hinduism and some aspects of Buddhism speak about a lot of things that are now no longer used. The things like the pineal gland and certain things. Do you think that is possible?
I've never heard, I have no idea about the pineal gland, I'll be honest. And I know that it's in the interior of the brain, I guess, right? It's deep inside the brain. Mm-hmm. So is it the same as I don't know what you call it, pituitary gland or something? But no, I've not heard of this. This is the first time I'm hearing of this.
It's got the anatomy of it's much like an eye. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it would be cool. It would be something cool for you to look into. But there's conspiracy theories out there that states that the chemicals put into drinking water, like fluoride, for example, calcify the pineal gland, will render it inoperable. It'll turn it into a rock in your head. So there's conspiracy theories out there that state that this is some type of agenda, that, some type of, New World Order or Illuminati or somebody that's trying to control the use of such things. Now, this is a conspiracy theory, obviously, but I urge you to look into it because it's interesting. All right, we're going to go to
Justin, real quick. Could I just add a comment?
Yes, absolutely.
Because Vanessa brought up a good point. I wasn't clear, Vanessa. We provide the client's personal experiences that were documented during the investigation. We just don't say it's proof of paranormal. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. That does. Perfect sense. Perfect. And I agree with that.
Because like you said, maybe the clients had an experience very similar to ours, and maybe it would help them validate something or help ease their mind about something. So yes, we definitely provide it. We just don't say it's proof of anything. It was a personal experience.
Absolutely. At this point, nothing's technically proof, so that I completely agree. I think we lost Naboo.
Uh-oh.
Let's yeah, let me check Hangouts real quick, guys.
Yeah. He just said connection lost.
All right. Let's go to the chat moderators. Let's go to YouTube first. We'll do some shout outs since there's not so many there, and see if there's any questions.
Sure. We have a Debbie 08, Tammy Petty, Craig Williams, Jen, Sam Thomas, Heath Edwards, and that is about it.
No questions?
No,
Okay.
it's quiet.
Sorry about that. I lost my connection a few
That's okay.
seconds.
It happens. You're back now. We're trying to do some shout outs from the chat and see if we can get any questions for you folks.
You ready for me?
I'm ready.
I have Derek Schreiner, I have Bill Davis, I have Josh Bender, I have Candace Kingsford, I have Keith Campbell, I have Holly Catalow, I have Matt Benton, Mark Maxey, I think that's how you say his name, John Ward, Lee Tussing, Nelson popped in for a minute, Bob Doherty Jr., I don't have any actual questions, I don't think. No, I don't have any actual questions. But I have a question myself, if I can ask.
Yeah, I'm surprised that no one's got a question yet, but by all means, go ahead.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're in a location and you're picking up certain things, but you don't have any scientific proof to back it up, and they want the scientific proof to back it up?
I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, this is what I got, and it happened. It actually, I guess, but people know I don't roll that way. Like when I think we talked about this the last time, when I was in Virginia and we were doing all the investigations with Sailor's Creek, I don't drive to locations. People come pick me up. They don't tell me where they're taking me, and they just take me. They just let me run with it. Okay. So when I was there with BPI, I basically got out of the car before it quit moving at Sailor's Creek and was running around, and Gwen was filming me the whole time, and I was telling her what they were all saying. The scientific proof of that was she was able to go back after the fact and verify everything I told her. So that's not science, that is verification.
Right.
But she was able to verify dates, military strategies, which direction they came from, which direction they should have came from, how far away it was, names, first and last, different things that happened at the house that was there. She was able to verify it all. So that isn't science because it didn't have hypotheses and a testing and a recreation, but that's pretty damn good. And so that's what I tell people. I will give you what I have. What you choose to do with that is entirely up to you, because I can't do anything else.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here. It's just that, maybe I'm not denying Vanessa's experience, but it's just that you told me that that the person who was in, I think, one of Roth's castle or somewhere told you
Roth's
like,
castle.
that extreme detail about things over there. So you didn't read back on Roth's castle at any point of time,
No.
like on Wikipedia or anything like that. Even
No.
unknowingly, maybe in your childhood or something like that. Nothing like that.
No.
Okay, then. So then essentially what you're saying is, the reason I'm asking is that maybe you subconsciously remember something you read in the past, and then it got transferred. The brain, like just saying, works in mysterious ways. So maybe you connected the dots and everything, and then that's one possible explanation. But what you're saying is you never heard about Roth's castle.
No. And I mean, I guess from a skeptic's point of view, I could see how you would want to go there. And I appreciate it and I understand it. And I'm not offended by it because I think everything should be in question. That having been said, I could see where people would think this. But like when I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I was doing a tour, not knowing where they're going to take us, and the woman there's witnesses to this. I have witnesses to everything. I don't do any of this shit by myself.
I'm sorry. There's witnesses to the small woman. in Rothschild, like the
Okay.
4 feet 11 inch moon.
Yeah.
That's all I remember about the moon. So,
No,
did she have a
this
name?
is a different thing. This is what happens to me. So
Okay. But
whether
you said
I
there were
know about it or
witnesses,
not.
means you said there were witnesses to watch this. That means like, what do you mean by that?
It means whenever this happens to me, whenever I have one of these conversations with dead people, which is what it is. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, sure, do I have them in my own home? Yes. But do I have them in front of witnesses? Yes. Where I am actually describing exactly what's going on to people, and it can all be verified.
How does it get verified though? That's what I.
Through historical documents that I have no access to.
Okay. No, I'm saying, okay. All right. No, I was thinking more along the lines of witnessing the small woman.
Oh, no, I'm the only
What
one
you're
that
saying is
either.
that, okay, what you're saying is that there are witnesses to what you were saying, and it checks up with the facts. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, there's witnesses to that. There's witnesses to when I channel and I run for 18 blocks with no knowledge of how I got there. They've got video of me channeling in a front yard in Virginia where my head is laying on my back. I'm literally looking behind me.
What's crazy about this, Naboo, is I was extremely skeptical about anybody having this ability. But what's fascinating about my story is I was brought up by a woman who could verify these things in a similar fashion to Vanessa's reporting. And it took a great amount of acceptance from my part, because a lot of people will be skeptical just because, like we were talking before, it's an extraordinary claim. You need extraordinary evidence. A lot of times, I was afraid. I didn't want the crap my mom was saying to be real. And that plays a part in the psychology as well. But the fact that people can do these things, and I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to document these things happening, it's crazy. And I want you to keep on thinking the way you're thinking, but I want to try to give you access to the people who document these things in a fashion that will look presentable to someone like yourself. But go ahead with what you were saying. I love how you were going back and forth with her on that.
It's just that okay, so she says she can speak with the dead, right? Vanessa can speak with the dead, which is I don't know. It just seems so. I mean, like, do you hear them speak?
It seems fucking crazy, Naboo. Say it. It seems fucking crazy. Don't it? It seems crazy to me.
Try growing up.
Maybe the word I'm looking for is unscientific. I don't want to call some. Maybe, I mean, you threaten to take me to jail. I mean, take people to jail.
No.
That's why I want to call unscientific. But
it is unscientific. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah,
it is unscientific. All I can do.
I'm someone who believes everything can be, science.
Okay, so if we're going to jump down that rabbit hole, as I would say on my show, if we're going to get all scientific about it, you're an atheist, correct?
Yeah.
You don't believe in a higher power, correct?
I believe in aliens, so that's an higher power.
So you don't believe in a soul?
I believe all of this is neural networks, like it's within the brain, so that doesn't make it any less amazing or anything.
Okay, an electrical function is different than a soul. A soul has purpose, it has drive, it has intention, it has compassion, it has empathy, it has sympathy. A soul is what makes us who we are. It's not just an electrical charge. So
most humans have that. Like most humans have that in their brain. It's like after years of evolution, like most humans have some kind of neural networks that trigger compassion, empathy, and all those things, and joy and happiness. It doesn't matter if you believe in a soul or not; you still experience it because that's how the brain is configured. That has to be the way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have evolved to this point. Like if we didn't have empathy, we probably would ourselves like long back. So I think that's like neural networks to me. But to you, you experience it as soul. I call it neural networks, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, without a soul, you're just a meat sack. So
No, I'm saying,
I mean, regardless of who you believe in as a higher power, without a soul, you're a walking meat sack. That at the end you die and that's it. You know, basically somebody unplugs you. If all we are is electrical charge, neurons, and everything else, not putting it scientifically. So I mean, and I'm not judging. I understand it. I get it. Fact of the matter is, I can't function that way. People ask me how I could possibly believe in the paranormal and what I do. I don't have a choice.
It's just that I'm saying, yes, you're right in that it's electrical activity and neurons and all those, but it doesn't work independently. It works like together, and we are still trying to find out how it works. So it's not as simple as just saying electrons and neurons and stuff, because they all work in a kind of combination to present what we experience as human experience. So it's not just on neurons and stuff. They all work together. That's what I have learned so far. The brain works that way. So that's actually quite amazing. What you find as amazing in soul, I find as amazing in the working of the brain. It's just interplay of these. I wouldn't say just three things like neurons and electrons and stuff. That's there in the brain, but I think there's much more things that work together that we are still to find out. So that's my take on it. And what we experience, I'm not denying it. So what your experience and what your life is, that's as valuable, and your experience is just as scientific as any of other experiences.
I'm curious about what Melissa has to add to this debate. I'm gonna let her get the mic. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I do. And I don't mean this in any disrespect, but Naboo, you believe in aliens, and people have said aliens don't exist, and we don't.
I considered the possibility of aliens, because if I'm sorry to break in. I mean, get in this time, but I'm saying that if ants are there, and they may look at us as aliens, and it's possible that we also are like ants to some other being. I'm just saying it's possible. I'm not saying I have the proof that there are aliens.
Okay, so I mean, Vanessa, you and I have never met, and we've never spoken before tonight. But it sounds like you've spent a lot of your personal time doing this, and I admire you for that, because dealing with clients is hard. You might have someone that comes to you, they're crying, they're scared to death, they're afraid of what's going on. And a huge portion of what I do for people is similar in the aspect I have to deal with the human side, right? Try to get people from, I've had clients so freaked out over experiences that they've had to go on medication, only for us to find out that their dog was causing some of these experiences. And so I admire that you can continue to deal with clients, because it is hard. It is hard heart-wise even, you know what I mean? Like the compassion you have for people. I also believe, like Vanessa said, everyone has a soul. I believe that that when we die, our soul leaves our body. I'm not completely sure on reincarnation yet. I'm still out to verdict on if that happens. But if we do have a soul, and it, like you said, it's part of our essence, our personality is part of that soul, in my opinion. So if someone was to stay behind for whatever reason, that personality is going to stay with them. So when you saw that cute little 4'11" lady, her personality was resonating, because that's who she was when she was walking this earth.
Yes.
I completely believe that. I mean, as much as I want for everything to be scientific, I'm telling you right now, I've been driving down the road in my car and looked over, and my grandfather, who died when I was 6 weeks old, was sitting in the car next to me.
Yeah.
And I've had those experiences. I couldn't document that experience. It was my personal experience. So Justin, I'm not going to get too crazy back and forth, but I believe a lot of what Vanessa is saying, that I believe we have a soul. I believe it is our essence. There have been a few different cases where they claim that when a person died, their body actually got lighter. It was only a few ounces, but when they died, their body got lighter because the soul left them. I've had lots of clients tell me in the first 30 days after a loved one or a friend has died, they've seen this person. This person has come back to them. So maybe some of it is in our brains, Naboo. I believe there are things that we see, shadows maybe at places. I believe there is also I've been to some haunted locations where they've hyped it up so much. I think they put that mass hysteria concept in play. They keep telling you you're going to see these shadows in the hall, so you do, kind of thing. So I definitely agree there is that aspect of it as well. But I can't dismiss some of the claims. I mean, I've had people tell me stories that they believe it wholeheartedly. And you know what? If just me listening helps them, I'm going to listen to them and help them get through that experience.
Bingo.
Awesome.
Yes.
But the issue I have over there is that what you're doing is fine. I understand what, I guess it's the same reason why people go to religion, the kind of comfort and everything. But the thing is that isn't there a secular way to do it? Isn't there another way to do it? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying your experience is different, but I'm saying, there might be a scientific and secular way that equally works. I'm not saying it's all either.
Well, and that's why when we interview
psychology.
Well, and that's a very good point. And when we have a client come to us, that is part of our interview process. My team doesn't get the call Friday and Saturday night we're there. We actually sit down with the client and go through about a 60-question questionnaire because we're looking for medical things too. We've had a client come to us, had some unusual experiences. He smelt the smell of roast beef every time he was in his bedroom. I contacted a couple of friends of mine that know more about neurology than I do and asked them about it. And sure enough, there is a neurological disorder that will cause certain people to smell meat. So when I called the client back to kind of go, hey, I really think before we do an investigation, you should get a clean bill of health from your doctor. And he was like, it's interesting you call me today because I actually just came from my doctor and he recommended I go see a neurologist because I'm showing some signs of some neurological things. So my team doesn't jump to the investigation. That was going to be my recommendation, is go get a doctor and get them to sign off. And then let's move forward, because I believed in my heart that they did have something medical going on that was causing the experiences they were having.
You're absolutely right. And this past October, I got called in by our Metropolitan Public Library. I mean, this is sanctioned by our local government for me to come in and do readings for people in Oklahoma City at the major, huge library, okay, for a paranormal Halloween type thing. And I wasn't charging. I did all of this for free. I did have a woman who came and sat with me. I mean, keep in mind, I think I did 30 clients in 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, 30, okay? She came in and I knew right off the bat. I knew right off the bat something wasn't right. I knew right off the bat that it was more medical than metaphysical. I knew. I also knew that if I confronted her with that right there, that she would become very angry and very violent. And so what I did during the reading was basically hide my reading of her needing to seek help in with the metaphysical, with the assurance from her that she was going to go to the place that I told her to go to. And I mean, that I consider that as important as any of the other readings I did that were actually metaphysical, because she had a very serious ailment, a very serious issue. And I could have very easily, for my own ego, fed into it. And that was absolutely unacceptable to me. So that's not science, but it is common sense and it's good sense. You know, I think what makes people want for everything to be scientific is the charlatans and the frauds and everything that we have out there that look for those cases to run with. And that's a shame.
Well, there's confirmation biases on both sides. We can't say that there's not. You know, everybody's human. So, the paranormal constantly fascinates me personally because I've had the experiences that a lot of people probably never will. And I'm constantly searching for answers that will, allow me to consider things other than what I believe them to be or what my mother had conveyed to me that they were, and other people in the paranormal field. I have issues with a lot of things, but I love this process, and the reason why I've done this show is because I want to air out people's opinions. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a brain. You have to have your own opinion and your own life experience to bring to the table. And I think as long as we keep it in that, you know, in that area, and we don't try to speak as if we're speaking for large groups or other people, I think that we can have value in, you know, what we say to each other on the show. And with that being said, we're going to go to a commercial break. Naboo, did you have something to add real quick?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say, like, psychiatry is considered scientific by at least some people. So the way I see what Vanessa and the others are doing in this field is similar to psychiatry. I mean, for psychiatry too, you don't have exact knowledge of how the drugs work, stuff like that. So it's a quick fix kind of thing. I mean, I'll be honest here, so I'm at the risk of offending people or whatever, but yeah, it's a quick fix. It's a good quick fix maybe, but then people will have to delve into, if they experience something, maybe they can see a psychologist, trained, you know, science-based psychologist, like, you know, degree and the usual stuff.
Right. That's a whole nother debate.
Yeah, so that's what I see it like. People say psychiatry is scientific, so yeah, that's like your experience. The way psychiatry works is that, you know, you insert chemicals into your brain and balances or blocks certain chemicals. So when you go to a person who's you know, I want to use the I can't pronounce the word clairvoyant. Anyways, paranormal. What you have is maybe the person provides a quick fix, like gives you meaning to your experience and stuff, which actually helps, because if you're going through a crisis, you don't want a scientist to look at you and evaluate you over a period of 15, 20 years and then come up with a solution, because you might have a breakdown. So a quick fix might have side effects like psychiatric medications. So yeah, so as a quick fix, I think in many instances we need quick fixes, right? I mean, is that logical? I guess it's fine. Before, you know, delving into the science behind why that person experienced whatever he or she experienced.
I get what you're saying. If there's any questions in the chat right now, please be patient. We're going to take a 6 or 7 minute break. We're going to play some video promotions during this break, so please don't go anywhere. Grab something to drink, get some, you know, bathroom breaks in, and feel free to share the show. Let everybody know that we're having a discussion on the topic of applying science to the paranormal research field. And we'll be back in, like I said, 6 or 7 minutes, so don't go anywhere yet. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good. Dead light. For those who aren't afraid to see what lurks in the night. not afraid. We know what it feels like to walk in the darkness.
Are you in this room over here? What the fuck, dude? Whoa. That's weird.
You didn't do anything, right?
No, I just turned.
Justin too close?
No,
He opened that door and then went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just run out of there?
Side effects of prolonged isolation: paranoia, depression, helplessness, brain stimuli decreases. Now, what happens when you put a man isolated in 3 paranormal infested buildings for 3 nights in each location, all by himself? No one to help me. No one to protect me. Just me versus you. Does paranormal activity increase?
So what do you think of this piece of evidence?
I think by far it's the best piece of evidence we have seen here.
That's flat out amazing. I mean, that's something we've never captured.
Oh, wow.
What? Nobody has ever got it on video.
That's creepy.
In 11 years.
So no one's ever caught this on video?
Never.
Ever.
Here is my story, and here is what I went through for my research into the paranormal. Push the door, please.
All right, welcome back. Hopefully you guys didn't go anywhere and you enjoyed a little bit of video promotion there. We are speaking to Vanessa Hogel, Melissa Tanner, and Nabu Augustine. We're having a conversation about the paranormal and whether it's a good idea or practical to apply science to the research and investigation and understanding of such phenomena. So that leads us into an interesting thing. I know Nabu was asking me, go ahead, you can go ahead and turn your video camera back on, Nabu. Nabu was asking me a question during the break about my mother, and I think that would be something we can go into on the show right now. He was asking me how I use my mother when I do the paranormal investigations. And I pretty much say, okay, Mom, I want you to do a reading for me. I'm going to take you to this place. I'm not telling you where I'm taking you. I'm not telling you anything. You're just going to get in this car. I'm going to take you. I'm going to put you up in a hotel, or I'll take care of you, gas, food, money, everything. I just want you to do a reading. So when the day comes, I stick her in the car. We go. She does the reading. I document it. I send her on her merry way. I do the investigation of the location if I'm doing it in that order. I do all the research. I interview all the people involved. And the information she comes up with strikingly and very accurately aligns with things that she should not know about the location, but yet she does. So we would deem this paranormal. There's no scientific explanation for why she would know this. It's not chance. It's not feeding her, subconsciously the information beforehand. We do everything that we can to eliminate that. So to answer your question, Nabu, we do everything that we know that's possible to keep her from being contaminated, for, leaking information to her.
Yes, we are talking about Inception over here. The movie Inception.
It's similar.
No, first of all, it's all right if I don't use the video, right? Because I tend to walk around and that kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, so you were saying, what was the discussion about again? I lost my train of thought.
You were asking me a question about my mother. And,
that's so. One of the things that came to my mind when you started talking about it is that, in a way, you might be trying to understand what your mother was going through by doing the investigations, like the paranormal investigations and this kind of work. So so that's just something that came to my mind when you said it. I felt like you were attached to your mom, and then that's one of the reasons. Maybe these are some of the reasons. I just want to, I guess, point out how the brain works in some ways. These are some of the reasons we do what we do, right? I guess.
So what you're saying is, since she is my mother, I would have a confirmation bias.
Not so much as that. More like you're doing, like your mom is in this field, and then I don't know. Like it's just it's just a small thing. It's just like why do people choose a particular job? Maybe it's something that has something to do with our own lives. So it's always like that almost, I guess. But I guess I'm interested in, like, you witnessed this with your mom, but you got, like, what I gather from you is that you almost have evidence that she didn't know anything, and then she kind of that would have shocked you, right? Even at I don't know which age this was happening, but it would have shocked you to know, like, that this sort of stuff happens. And you are I would guess, an atheist, or I'm sorry, I should have probably asked that first.
I am not an
What
atheist.
do you categorize you as? Yeah.
I am not an atheist. I don't align with any religion out there. You could call me a spiritualist. I do believe, there is a spirituality, but I don't subscribe to any type of theology out there per se. There's some things that I do agree with, in certain beliefs. I don't go to church. I don't worship a particular deity. But I do feel like my belief is complicated. It's definitely not something that everyone would subscribe to, or there's definitely not a church of Justin's belief out there, if that makes sense to you. But I leave an opening in my head. I do not believe that there is no such thing as spiritual things. I do believe that there is, but I don't understand what they are, hence why I'm on the spiritual journey, and hence why I do the things that I do. I'm trying to explore that aspect of my life through paranormal investigation, through research, and finding my way. That's all we can do.
Okay.
I have a question, Justin.
Good.
I want to ask Naboo this. Okay, so Naboo, I am a tree hugging dirt worshiper pagan, candle magic burning witch for my entire life. Okay. Yeah, I'm that gal. Now, here's my question. Based on what you were talking to Justin about, a couple of Saturdays ago, or maybe it was this past Saturday, I can't recall. I think it was this past Saturday. I was reading for a team out of Sheffield, and basically a minute into their live feed, keep in mind I had no idea where they were. There's no distinguishing factors of where they were. They had not given the name of where they were. There was no information. And I told them on this live feed, live for everybody to see, that one of the people that they were communicating with had been stabbed near the West End. I don't know dick about the West End. That's just what he was screaming at me in my head. Dave about dropped the camera where they were, because it was about 500 feet or something like that from the West End. Nope, I did not know that. Nobody on the live feed knew that, nothing. So I see where you're trying to go with Justin and his mother, that there might have been a familial connection that she was able to pick up off of, maybe from him. But these people are 4,000 miles away from me, and there's no information given.
I didn't exactly get you, but you were talking to them on the phone or something like that?
No, through Facebook.
Okay.
Through Facebook Live for everybody else to see. So everybody already knew there was no information given.
I'm not sure how anyone could validate it, because that's like that seems anecdotal, right? That's I don't know how you can kind of prove it, in the sense that it could be like when was this?
It could be what?
No, when was this? When did this happen?
It was either last Saturday or the Saturday before.
Okay, so then
4,000 miles away from me.
Yeah, maybe like they had a Bluetooth or something. I mean, that's one possibility. I'm thinking like a skeptic or a scientist, maybe. I don't know. So they could have some kind of hearing device that could relay that kind of information, because this particular group knew about a stabbing at a distance. That could be one reason. I mean,
okay.
So that's one possibility.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are people out there that do that. Obviously, there's been people out there caught doing that, like mentalists and magicians have been caught doing that. Psychics have been caught doing that. They have an earpiece. Someone comes in for a reading, and people are feeding them information as they're doing their reading through an earpiece or through some kind of electronic device. So, in order to throw that out, you would have to be there, looking at Vanessa at the time for you to believe that. So that is, I think it's a valid, question to bring up. Certainly I do. Melissa, what is your take on that? Do you ever work with psychics or mediums, and if you ever encounter them, what value or how do you quantize their feedback?
I'll be honest, we've only worked with a couple of psychics, and it was only on a couple of occasions. The first one, we actually were able to find out he was using the internet to find information and to dupe us. The second one we used, though, we participated in the ghost hunt night that they do, where like a bunch of teams from all around the world investigate on the same night. And the very first one they did, part of the experiments you were doing was to have a psychic come in for the second half of the investigation. And so we didn't tell her where we were going. I gave her the address, like in just enough time for her to drive to the location. So she wouldn't have had anyway, unless somebody else told her. But no one from my team, there was nothing, where she could have found that information. And what we actually were to do is do experiments in the first half without her, and then do the same experiments in the second half to see if there was differences. Well, then we also we had investigated this place before. And so I actually, as part of our EVP session, asked questions that we had asked the first time, but she would have zero way to know the answers. And there were a couple that she actually got the same answer that we got in an EVP the time before. So she was probably the first one I've worked with face-to-face that I would get some weight to and say, yeah, I would work with that person again. But typically, because we are more of a technology-based group, we don't really reach out unless it's like a situation where we needed further assistance. So like if I was to use someone like Vanessa, probably what I would do is we've investigated once, maybe after that time, the second time I would engage someone like her to either help us validate some things or to give us a different insight, something along those lines.
See, that's really fair. I was actually the Mike Ricksecker, who I have my show with. He's my publisher. We have Edge of the Rabbit Hole on Tuesdays. And he was a part of a team that I was just a random consultant for. When I had time, when they needed me, nothing fancy. And their team leader was their psychic. And Mike and a couple of other people really started to question if she actually was, or if she was getting her information, from other sources. And unbeknownst to me, some psychic I am, unbeknownst to me, they started sending me messages at the same time sending her messages. She had access to the case files. I didn't even know where they were, but I was describing where they were at to a T inside of a home that I didn't know the address to. It was a private residence that I had never been to. And it was taking her twice as long to do the same thing when she had case file, pictures, everything else. So they used me kind of as the gauge for her as well. And I completely agree with that. I think if you're ever in question of who you're working with, test them. By all means, test them. Because, like we've all said, yep, people fake some shit all the time. All the time. And it's sad and it hurts us all.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is my investigation does not stop with the claims of a client or the location. It starts with me, actually. I stick a camera in my face. I stick a mic in my face. And I record myself and I watch myself. So I see what I'm doing, how I'm impacting the investigation from that standpoint. I try to put myself in a situation to where I'm not biased. I'm not, trying to confirm any biases. I'm not, I'm trying to be objective. So I'm looking at myself first and foremost. And I think everybody should approach it that way. You investigate your metaphysicist, you investigate everything, you question everything.
Everything.
and everything's an independent variable. You take in the information, you log it into your nice little Excel spreadsheet, and you just step back and you look at it and you say, okay, this lines up with this is going to explain away as that, and this over here, maybe there's something over here that doesn't have an explanation. Maybe Vanessa hit on something that we don't, there's no explanation why she should hit on that. Or maybe over here there's a reading that we should not get, and Vanessa felt something over there, and that would correlate with something possibly. But we just stop there. They're saying that's a correlation, but we don't know what it is yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
or I might walk into a place and not get shit.
Right.
That can happen.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's infallible. Nobody's perfect. And sometimes they don't want to talk to me. Sometimes they want to talk to Gwen, or sometimes they want to talk to somebody else. Maybe I don't vibe with that spirit, but maybe Tina does. Maybe Jessica does. Maybe you do. Maybe Missy does. Maybe Naboo does, in a week or so when he starts to have experiences, if he does. It's just...
She's already casting spells on you.
Oh, you don't want me to do that. But it's not as if we control what the spirits do. They're their own people, just because they're not in the bodies anymore. They're their own people, and they decide who they want to speak to and who they want to give the information to. Am I lucky that they talk to me a lot? To a certain degree, yes, but I'm not always the gal. Sometimes it's somebody else that can relay their message better than me.
Right. Before I get back to you, Naboo, I want to go to Melissa real quick. Now that we're kind of on the subject matter of investigating everything, what is your approach to getting a profile of a client? Say you're doing a client investigation. What is your procedure for getting a profile, and how do you investigate the individuals in the location?
So to get a profile, I mean, we start with, on our website, there's 10 questions we ask the person to answer. And then I have a case manager call them, and we ask the exact same 10 questions again. And the reason why is I'm seeing, do they answer them the same way, or do they embellish? Because what I'm trying to find out is, are they telling me the truth? Okay. So once that case manager asks those questions, gets some answers, they kind of give their feel. Then we would set up a face-to-face interview. And guess what the first 10 questions are? The same ones we already asked. Mm-hmm. And now I've got a third opportunity to double check their answer. Did they embellish again? Did they stay with the same story? Did they, it's one thing if you elaborate because you thought of something else. I'm talking about the story goes way, way, way off in left field, completely different than what they said. Some of the other things we're looking for is, do we have to pull the answers out of them, or do they have an answer? So if I have to probe to find out what kind of activity they're having, they probably are just looking for attention, and there's probably not something there, because if they've had experiences, they would be able to tell me about them. So then we ask these questions, and some of these questions are, do they have health issues? So, and we don't ask them like that. Do you have a health issue? We ask them, have you ever had a sleep study done? Because maybe what they're seeing is every time they wake up or when they fall asleep, they're seeing these images, which our brain has a tendency to do those things as you're falling asleep. We ask them, have they ever had any epileptic, incidents? We ask all those questions, even what medications they're on, because some medications can cause people to hallucinate, to hear things. Then outside of that, to profile as well, I'm sorry, guys, but we do background checks on our clients.
Good.
We check and see, are they on a sexual predator list? Do they have a record? Finding out as much information as we can. And then that tells us more credibility, right? And so all of that, Justin, is put together. We talk about it as a team. And then I have a researcher doing research at the same time. And what they're looking for is more information on the client, but also what can they find out about the house? What can they find out about maybe phenomenon that's happened in that neighborhood or that city? And so we're gathering all of that information too. We do not base our investigation just on the experiences the client had. We investigate it as a whole. So even if all the experiences happen in the kitchen, we're going to put equipment up in other areas. Justin, as you know, visual is the hardest. That is the hardest thing to document. We get a lot more audio things than we do get visual. And we used to just like throw audio or video all over the house. I mean, we had like, 16 cameras, DVRs, and all that. And what I started finding is it really wasn't giving us much. We were spending a lot of time doing data review and not really getting it. So now it's more bang for your buck. I basically try to focus on where the claims are. Or when I forgot to mention that after we do the interview, we do a walkthrough of the location. Then we come back a totally different time to do the investigation. And part of the reason, guys, why I'm doing this so many times, not just looking for consistency, but if that client really, really, really wants an investigation because there's really something going on, they need to be invested too. It can't all just be my team driving it. So from that said, if I got the call Friday night and Saturday night I show up, I've done no background check, I've done nothing, I could be putting my team in a very dangerous situation because I don't know these people that have called us in.
Right.
But B, the client hasn't had time to also build a relationship with us. And so then they maybe haven't told us everything. Maybe they haven't shown us everything. And as we're doing this walkthrough, before we go back, we're looking for stuff too. Do we see things that are set off alarms? So for instance, this happened to us at a client. One of the questions we ask is, do you drink alcohol? And if so, how often? And we were told by this client, absolutely not. One of my team members that's with me on the interview starts tapping my leg and moving their eyes. You go over to their cabinet and there was all this alcohol. So that right there automatically contradicted what they said, right? So now there's already a thought in my mind, they're trying to deceive me. So those things, Justin, go into that. Mm-hmm. And then what I do after we've walked through, I've talked to the client, I start determining where we put equipment, that we would get the best angles, trying to avoid windows, trying to avoid mirrors, because you can get all kinds of pareidolia happening. You get false positives from cars going by.
It's highly complex.
Exactly. And, one of the things we do as part of training for our team is every piece of equipment that was new that came onto the team, we would get together as a group and do all these experiments. So like with a camera, dropping dust in front of it, dropping dog hair in front of it, dropping hair in front of it. Because I wanted my investigators to see what these things look like in front of these cameras. Because 99.9% of what these cameras pick up is not paranormal. And just so that there's training also the client or the team goes through so they can figure out what to weed out. But I think the biggest part of the profiling, Justin, is just talking to the client. And like I said, we had a client that she had got herself so worked up. I felt so bad for her that she had caused her heart to race. Her blood pressure was through the roof. And it was her dog. Most of it was her dog doing it. Her dog was very high strung. He reacted to her every time she did something. And one of the claims was her door kept getting locked. She'd go out to garden. She'd leave the dog in the house. The door wasn't locked. Then she'd come back and the door was locked. And she couldn't figure out why. Well, we put a camera on the door and watched what the dog did. And first thing he did when she went outside is jumped up. He could hit the lock with his paws and he was accidentally locking the door. Not paranormal. And so then we have to go back and teach that. As far as the video part of the question, Justin, it is hard. It is hard to try to come up with it. You do have to have the right equipment, the right IR cameras, the right distance. You got to learn what best camera fits in the best areas, because you can flood a situation with too much IR if it's a small room. And I think the biggest thing is just, I know everybody wants to record everything, but you're going to get so much data that most of it means nothing. And my thought is strategic. Look at where the claims are. Look at where maybe you had readings when you were there as your walkthrough, and strategically put this equipment. And then if I put a camera out, it always has to have audio with it. That's another rule.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I like redundancy, but I don't check everything. Like, I will put up stuff for redundancy, but I won't check it unless I need to go back and check it for a reason, not just because I need to be so thorough, I agree with everything you're saying.
And we do that with audio. Justin, you and I have talked about this many times. All my team is mic'd up, so I can distinguish stomach growls from the demonic, things that might be happening or whatever. And I make a joke with that, but I can tell you right now, I can weed out 99.9% of any human interaction of any person that was in that building because of how we mic up every person. cameras have mics with them, and we even put a recorder outside if we're doing a residential investigation, because who knows if that scream we heard was the neighbor yelling at, you know, someone else in their backyard from a barbecue, and it wasn't paranormal at all. And so we try to do that to weed things out too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room for people that wonder why why we're so specific about certain things. Me with readings, y'all with equipment. Like if I'm doing a case, if I'm physically going to the case, I have to fly to a lot of these cases. I mean, fly or drive. I mean, I've flown to Virginia and driven to Virginia. That's a 24-hour one-way trip for me if I'm stopping and resting. I've flown to New York, driven to Jersey, Illinois. I mean, this isn't something that I take lightly. So if I'm going to invest my time and hard fucking earned money into do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to go and make up a bunch of shit. And I'm so happy that you brought up the drinking. Thank you for that, because it really does make a difference. You have to know your clients and you have to know what you're walking into. And so many people want to get out there and just jump in with both feet that they don't pay attention to that. And that needs to be the basic number one thing. Know your client.
So like,
go ahead.
Yeah, like when the client approaches you, like, do you tell the person about the costs and stuff so that I'm just trying to figure out like the client is willing to pay a lot of money to find out what's happening, right?
Nope, we do this for free, or at least on my team does. Yeah.
Most groups do it for free.
Vanessa. Okay, is that the same for Vanessa also?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for free.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually frowned upon.
But isn't it a lot of work? I mean, so how do you like kind of, make money? Like, how do you recuperate like all the equipment and everything like that? I'm just, maybe I'm looking into the business end of things here, but how do you make money?
It's not a business.
I look at it.
Where do you get the money from this?
I look at it like some people invest money in trains, or they rebuild cars, or maybe they collect movies. This is where I invest my money. I want to help people, so this is where I spend my extra dollars that I have available.
Exactly.
Okay. And also, Melissa, I'm just wondering, like, is this like your part-time kind of thing, or like do you have other income also, right? So that you use the money from that to do this.
Yes, I have a day job.
Is it privately? You're privately funded. Like you fund yourself.
Yes, correct. I have a day job. I work Monday through Friday, and then I do this at evenings and on the weekends. Okay,
and is there any kind of like qualification that is like the clients come to you and do they ask your like? I'm just. I don't know how is there a qualification? Do you have a degree in psychology or something like that will help you with, finding out if it's a medical condition, that kind of stuff, or is it just self-learned? Do you learn it off the net and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, I don't diagnose medical conditions, but if I suspect that's what it is, I tell them they need to go see their doctor before we proceed with an investigation, just to be clear with that. But as far as their qualifications, there's really not. I mean, this is volunteer, and what I try to do is balance our team. Like someone like Vanessa, it would be ideal to have on the team because they would understand people. I mean, like she has to deal with people all the time. So you definitely need people that can read people and know how to talk to people, because what we're doing, most of the clients are totally scared. Vanessa, I don't know if you see that, but a lot of clients come to us, they're already scared, they're freaking out. So you don't want to make them more freaked out, by what you're doing. But I like to also kind of get different fields, different religions. I've also have relationships, even if it's not on the team. I don't know, Justin, if you do this, but like I know someone who's a priest. I know someone who is a rabbi. I know someone is pagan. I know someone's a shaman. So if I need that kind of, religion, I can bring them in. So it's basically just the passion and the dedication is really what I look for. Make sure they'll fit in with us, and we can teach them the things they need to know to how to do an investigation. But I think every team member has always brought something to the table that someone else didn't have, and that's always made us better as a team.
That's the beauty of it. That's the absolute beauty of it. Naboo, I'm a pediatric dental assistant. I'm a waitress on Saturdays. I'm a 3-time published author. I'm a jewelry designer, a single mom, and I do this all on my own dime. I've traveled to Ireland, England, Scotland, and in 30 states in the U.S. on my own dime.
Okay. So
If people don't get into this for the money, they get into it to help people. Because let's face it, you can't open up a phone book. Not that we have it anymore, but you can't open up a phone book and find somebody who's reputable. And you know, just like we were saying, I'm pagan and I've had people contact priests.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I'm not denying it's a solution to a person in crisis. Maybe actually, it's a funny story because like I had a crisis back in 2006. And I was, scientifically evaluated. Maybe things would have turned out differently if it was, handled by an alternative this thing. So as far as science go, I'm a skeptic when it comes to, not science, but scientists. Let's just say that. So yeah, I can understand because that's the same reason why people go for this kind. The church is like a huge thing here in Kerala, where I'm there. It's like 30% are Christians, which is different from the rest of India. So yeah, we all go for emotional healing and stuff. So I've been using psychiatric medications on and off, but I do stuff sometimes envy people who go for church and everything. And I don't know, because I was in Saudi, there is no church or temples there. So maybe I do think if my life would have turned out different if there was a church in Saudi and stuff, and that community feel comes up. But that's how different people take different paths, I guess. So as far as quick fix is considered, it's okay. But again, I guess what I'm having problem with is the genuinity of it. Like, do you? If you are a person who's experiencing this, I don't know if it's just money. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just. Is there a scientific field? Why not start a scientific field on this? Like, things that can't be explained. That's like, I don't know. Maybe it comes under physics, like BSc physics. So, if you're talking about speaking with other people in dimension, I'm thinking in terms of acoustics and I've not read about quantum physics at all, maybe, but there's something called entanglement or something. So something that happens at some part of the universe is connected to another part of the universe, but that is still in the beginning stages. So I guess that's what I'm, what I have to give in this is that I'm not sure, like, still, like, how much of it is just for making money. Now, you both said that you're doing it for free. So I'm just wondering just how much, like, the equipment and everything, it will cost a lot. So if this is a valid field, then why not get the science out on it and get it determined? Like, or I don't know, maybe the government can do the funding if it's a valid thing, right? So, but then you would have to come to a conclusion, and maybe, I mean, you don't have to come to a conclusion, but you could come with a certain degree of certainty that this is just maybe errors in our brain. And I want to say one more thing, that is like, we all have errors in our brain. So one other thing I want to say is that like when you talk about the brain, it's getting personal. You can tell a person that, your kidney is not so good, your lungs is not so good, you don't breathe, and that person won't be offended in the least bit for most part. But once you speak about the brain, then it's a different thing. So, but every person has errors. I'm just wondering if you are maybe monetizing on errors. If by you, I mean people who do this.
Some do, Naboo.
Yeah.
But like I was saying before, it's frowned upon to charge for such services because of what you brought up. We cannot validate or ensure that we can remove ghosts from your home, prove that there's ghosts or hauntings. We What we do for the most part is go in and try to find explanations for things. That's what good paranormal investigators do. Now, Vanessa, on the other hand, she has a very devout belief in her psychic ability. So she goes in, does her thing, and, you know, that's what she contributes. She doesn't pay, or she doesn't ask for payment. She does it because it's her calling, it's her passion. Her compensation is helping someone, not not financial. So that's from my experience, that's what I observe in general. That's what in general people do. Their compensation is having field to research to get data from, because they're trying to understand if there's validity to EVP, if there's validity in the psychic phenomena. Is do people really see ghosts? Is there ghosts in their home? Can we photograph them? Can we find evidence of them? That's what generally we do.
Yeah, so but I'm asking, like, do we have that kind of evidence that has been proven?
No.
So far, no.
No. There is no physical evidence of the paranormal that other separate independent groups in a scientific community has replicated and validated. So no.
Okay, because I think maybe if you go into a research area in science, and let's say if you want to find out if plants have a feeling, plants can experience pain, which was done by an Indian scientist. He put sensors on the plant stem and observed pressure differences. So how many times do you have to do the research is one thing that I'm interested in, because once that data has been collected, then it's a definitive conclusion. So maybe I'm thinking of the economics of here, but how much money more do you need to invest before saying that?
A lot. That's a good question. I mean, it takes a lot of money that we don't have. We're definitely limited on our resources. We're limited on our education, what we know about physics, what we know about science, what we know about forensics and psychology and medicine and everything that this, research, needs in order to do our jobs well. So all of those things you're bringing up, I believe, is valid. What do the girls think?
Who wants to go first?
You can go ahead.
Okay. While I agree that it would be absolutely wonderful if we had an organization that would help us fund and find what would be satisfactory as far as conclusive evidence goes for the layman out there, I think that would be wonderful. That having been said, that's not something that I think we're going to see even in our lifetime, especially in this country, because what we do in the eyes of many directly contradicts organized religion, because it is not comfortable for people to believe that when you pass, you don't go to the hereafter. You don't go to a specific heaven or a specific hell. It's very, very, very uncomfortable for people. So I don't see that happening. That having been said, I am also of the mind that I'm not certain I would want the government involved in something as delicate as this, because they have proven themselves to be extremely incompetent and exceptionally manipulative. If you go back to during the days of Prohibition, our own government actually paid people to put distilleries in their basements and provided them with the poison to poison the liquor to give or to sell to people to prove that alcohol was bad for you. So if you're asking me if I trust them on something so delicate and so sensitive, the answer is an unequivocal no. Okay. As far as psychology goes, I'm a high school dropout who went to school in her 20s at night to get my high school diploma, and then in turn trained with the military and the Red Cross to do what I do. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I am not trained in that fashion. I am, however, I've got 20 years experience dealing directly with people as far as patients go, and I know what to look for. I do not diagnose. I do veer in the right direction where they need to get diagnosis if I feel something is wrong. And I've been talking to dead people for 44 years. So I'm not an expert, none of us are, but I do believe we are professionals. And I can say that with great confidence because we might not get paid, but neither do voluntary firemen or voluntary police officers. And yet I tell you what, I would be very happy to see either one of those extremely heroic people when and if I was in a situation where they were needed, regardless of what they had on a paycheck.
I love that you said that.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Melissa?
Well, I mean, and there's people that volunteer for all kinds of stuff. Those are Vanessa, very good points. But I mean, like there's people that are Rotary members. There are people that do other things. And I think it's part of our human nature to want to help people so that, we join clubs or organizations to do that. There have been groups that have gotten funding, that have done their own research. Quantum physics is definitely a thing that's being kicked around right now in a lot of groups. And, I think one of the things that's hard is people keep saying, well, science hasn't proved it. We haven't been able to document anything. But for a long time, people thought the world was flat, too. So, I mean, it's going to take time. It's going to take the right type of equipment. It's going to take the right kind of research materials. So I think there are groups out there, but then at the same time, it's going to take money to do that. And who's going to fund the money? Is it going to be the state and local government? Is it going to be the federal government? And then, like Vanessa said, you start involving the government, it's a whole totally different, ball of wax. Some universities have done tests on psychics. I think the Arizona University, I believe, and Vanessa, maybe you know better, but world-renowned medium Alison Dubois. She has worked with the universities in Arizona for years. I think she said 20,000 hours where they've tested her. So there is data out there. It's just we're not as organized yet as I think like dentistry is, right? I mean, like there are certain things that happen with that, and we're getting there. It's just we're just not there yet.
Someday, I wish I could say in our lifetime. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening, and I hate that I'm a cynic in that regard. I truly do. But each day, the little groups, us little people, we get that step closer into having proper conversation with those who have passed on, regardless of whether or not the masses deem it worthy. And I think as long as we can, continue to do that, we're doing what we're supposed to do. And that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah, I'm just interested here. I haven't read a whole lot on talking with the dead, but do you actually hear speech, or is it thoughts that come, or like when you say talking to the dead? Both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so when you see a client of yours, you hear the speech and or the thoughts of the client's maybe mother or father or the relative who has passed on.
I hear what they want me to hear. It's not like they sit down and have a direct conversation all the time. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes, yes, but sometimes they give me little bits and images. I'm a waitress on Saturdays, and people that know what I do will come in, and I don't know them from Adam, but they've seen me on one of these shows or they've bought my books, and I'm very open about what I do for a living. I'm not too proud. I'm a single mom. And they'll come in and they'll ask to sit in my section. And
because the reason is one of the reason you could and would you say that your clients are like happy after or peaceful after they consult
every time.
Okay, so some of it might be, I'm guessing, I'm also trying to study psychology along with science anyways. So when a client comes up to you, you look at their face and then you see those small emotions and stuff, and you get a feel of the person. And maybe you are intuitive to their emotional needs. And
their emotional needs won't dictate what's happening in the home.
No, I'm saying like when you say you hear or when you get the speech or the images, it might be the brain also doing a calculation and trying to come up with something. You might have a desire to help people and make them feel at peace at the subconscious level, perhaps. But who knows? But yeah, so the brain does a calculation and you start speaking to the person. And pretty soon he or she feels calm. So it's like a gift that you have. It's just that I would, like, if I were you and if I had this kind of abilities, which I'm not sure if I have or not, but maybe I'll pursue a degree in psychology as well, like I'm not sure how expensive it is in US, but
I appreciate that, and I understand where you're coming from. And you're right. I absolutely have a gift when it comes to making people feel at ease. 100%. I'm not going to deny that. It's true. That gift will never provide me with information that I should not know. I did a reading for a woman whose deceased holistic doctor came through. I've never met this woman. We talked on the phone. This came through. Her deceased holistic doctor proceeded to tell me how she had changed her diet since his death and everything that he had told her in specific detail that she was no longer doing anymore.
I didn't get you completely over there. But yeah, no, what I was trying to say was that you look at a person and you then see the kind of, kind of maybe the depression inside of them or something. You kind of have that intuitive feel. I sometimes feel that also, but I tend to call it intuition or empathy or something, and then you talk to them and they feel better. So that's
I believe that there are intuitions people can have, that anybody can have, that's not paranormal, that's not psychic. Vanessa will have intuitions that she will not have to call upon for a spiritual source, and she will provide that assistance. A lot of times I'm skeptical about some of the intuitions that we have that we believe are coming from a spiritual source that may not be. And even though people like Vanessa, my mom, and others may believe it's spiritual, it's possible that it may not be. But we won't know unless we try to set up experiments to eliminate that possibility. Like we were discussing before, separating the people that were reading by large distance, not knowing anybody involved, not seeing the emotion on their face, so you're not reading their emotion. All those type of things we can try to do to try to, weed out those possibilities, and it gets complex. So you can find out whether what you're alluding to is in fact the case.
Justin, you're absolutely correct. And I do want to clarify something real quick. I don't charge for investigations. I don't charge my travel. I don't charge any of that. I do tarot readings for $25. And actually, I've kind of retired from it. And I do those on the phone. And the people aren't allowed to talk during the tarot reading until I'm finished. And you can ask any person I've done a reading on, and they will tell you that is the 100% truth. They're not allowed to speak to me because I want to read the cards. I don't want to read the person. And then afterwards, we have a nice big old long chat. But I've already given my reading.
There is one way I can see how this can be somewhat verified. So if Vanessa is saying that she has images and sound come when she's doing this kind of reading with the dead or whatever it is, I am guessing maybe like if you put kind of like if you can measure the electrical activity of the brain during that time, the areas where the brain senses sound and also visual will light up, right? So that might be one way of, I don't know how, I mean, the details are much more, you would have to go to a PhD in neuroscience for that, but I'm guessing like that, those areas of the brain will light up, that will, the speech and the visual. So those two systems will sort of light up, but then again, this is going into the details, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I've already had probes in my brain. I'm not letting anybody do that again. So.
I do think that would be interesting research. I would like to see someone hooked up to an EEG, and if they're picking up on voices from the dead, like you said, the area of their brain that hears should
consent, hopefully.
Yeah, should be lighting up. But I need to hold you guys here. I want to let you guys plug. If you want to plug, because we're reaching the 2-hour mark. I would like to thank each member of the panel very much for coming on the show. I think we had an excellent conversation about the subject matter. Let's start with Melissa Tanner. Why don't you tell our viewers, the ones that have hung out for the last 2 hours, how they can find you? How can they see your work and anything that's coming up for you?
Sure. So again, Melissa Tanner, I'm with TNT Paranormal Investigators. We do have a website, so it's tntparanormal.com. We do have Facebook, so that would be under TNT Paranormal Investigators. We do a lot of library programs. Right now, we're located in Central Florida, so that's where a lot of the programs are. So if you are in the Central Florida area, you can check out our website and see. But what our programs are about is to educate people about the paranormal, show some of the data we've collected during investigations, and kind of talk about some of the things that orbs, there's a whole section on orbs. Justin and I have had this conversation many times, but like what kind of things, to look for in your photography and things like that. So one of the big pieces for us is we're all about education. So I try to educate people as well on, about the paranormal. I think that's it, Justin.
Awesome. And you best not be backing out on me. You need to be in this field. We need you, okay? I'm just gonna say that.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
You talking to me?
Yeah, you talking to me?
I'm just gonna put that out there. It's hard, I know, but I would hate to see you not continue the work that you're doing, because I think it's very valuable. But we'll switch to Vanessa.
Well, thank you.
We'll switch to Vanessa. Let her do her plugs, and we'll leave Naboo for last.
Okay, real quick, Melissa, where are you located at?
Near Orlando.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you said that. All righty. I'm going to come down there. Anyway, hey, Vanessa Hogel. You've heard it all. My books are on Amazon. The first one sucks. Don't buy it. Giving Up the Ghost and Walking with Ghosts is very good. They're both on Amazon. Rebel Witch and Memoir will be coming out in a couple of months. Me and Mike Ricksecker have a show on YouTube, 8:30 Central Standard Time on Tuesday nights, called Edge of the Rabbit Hole. And I'm there.
Yeah, I'm very privileged to have got connected you with Vanessa through Mike Ricksecker, of course, and I'm looking forward to much more work together and collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a pleasure. So, Naboo, is there anything that you would like to say as far as plugs? Do you want people to find you on Facebook, or do you want people just to leave you alone?
First of all, what is plugs? I didn't get you.
A plug is something that you would like to promote about yourself. Is there any type of work that you want people to follow, for example?
No, I'm trying to get back to writing. So I don't know, like I'm thinking of becoming a Facebook writer. Like I'm not sure if that's a thing.
A blogger? Are you talking about blogging?
So no, just normal Facebook writing or Google blogs. Maybe I'll get onto that just to keep things different. But yeah, just going to try to write more. And this has been an inspiration. I was kind of stuck in a rut, I guess. But now it's nice to meet you people, and I'll try to write more, I guess. Maybe you guys can follow me on my writing, and hopefully this time it will be better.
Naboo, I invite you to find a reputable team near you and go on an investigation with them and see what you think.
In India, not a lot of people do this.
There's some teams though. You might have to look, but there's some teams.
Go along with what Melissa's saying. If you need help finding them, we'll help you. There are links in this video descriptions of the links I shared you. They'll let you go to Melissa's website, let you to go find Vanessa on her YouTube channel and see her books. I encourage you to connect with us more, to look into the work that we've done and to learn more about what we do if it interests you. And I'm very grateful that you chose to come on the show, because you're not someone who's like a proclaimed skeptic that's out to get anybody that believes in ghosts in the paranormal field. I know a lot of people would probably give me crap for having just anybody come on, but that's to me, I just go from the gut. If you look like somebody that's not completely ridiculous, I'm going to have you on the show. And I thank you for coming on the show, and hopefully we get to talk again and get to know each other more.
Yeah, I'm grateful too, and it's my pleasure. I've always been looking for an outlet for my views, but finally I think I replied to your post. And thanks for reaching out to the skeptic community. Yeah.
Oh, Yeah, you're welcome. I will keep doing that for this show. It's tough. It's tough
talking
sledding.
about your
But,
post.
all right. If you have to, if the people on the panel have to go, you can exit the call. If not, you can hang out for a moment while I wrap up the show.
I gotta run. Love y'all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Justin.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I'm sorry if there was any questions on the last half of the show. It is very hard to get those in there because we have a 3-person panel that we're going back and forth. So if you had a question and we did not ask it, I apologize. By all means, get the contact information from our panel and email them or message them independently. If you have questions for them, you feel free to email me at justinbrown@interfacedeath.net, PM me on Facebook, everywhere. You call me. By all means, I'm here for you. But I'm going to end the show with how I usually do. There's links right here. I urge you to go to liveparanormal.com. It'll show you all the shows that they have on their platform. All of the content that they have, it can be found there. You can find all of my paranormal research content at interfacedeath.net. Links in the description. Follow Live Paranormal on Facebook if you're watching on YouTube. Patreon.com/support Interface Death is a way to help financially support content like this and all the other stuff that we do. We'll elaborate on Patreon here in a moment. You can follow Interface Death Paranormal Research on Twitter and Instagram. Patreon is something that makes this content possible. Without our Patreon supporters listed here, we just couldn't continue to produce these shows at the level that we're doing them and continue and get better. People like Clay Borman, R.J. Murphy, Danette Goldtrip, Scotty Fox, Casey Schreiner, Jessica Bias, Bill Davis, Joe Vitale, Heather Elliott, General Rogue, Craig Williams, and Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers all make this content possible. If you are interested in donating to our cause, you get rewarded and get exclusive perks and content by doing so. So check out that link in the video description. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you want to stick around and watch the same advertisements and video promos that you did at the break, by all means do so. I have a live show called My Paranormal Soapbox tomorrow on my blog page, Justin Brown. You can find Justin Brown Paranormal Research on Facebook. You can go to Interface Death on YouTube. And Wednesday, I interview people in the paranormal field on a show called Necromancer. So just go to the website, get all of those details. And thanks for joining me. I love you all very much. I'll see you next time.
Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good. Dead light. For those who aren't afraid to see what lurks in the night.
stuff's downstairs.
Are you down there? Not afraid. We know what it feels like to walk in the darkness.
Are you in this room over here? What the fuck, dude?
Whoa.
That's weird.
You didn't do anything, right?
No, it just turned.
Is Justin too close?
No.
He opened that door and it went off.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you just run out of there?
Effects of prolonged isolation, paranoia, depression, helplessness, brain stimuli decreases. Now, what happens when you put a man isolated in 3 paranormal infested buildings for 3 nights in each location, all by himself? No one to help me. No one to protect me. Just me versus you. Does paranormal activity increase?
So what do you think of this piece of evidence?
I think by far it's the best piece of evidence we have seen here.
That's flat out amazing. I mean, that's something we've never captured.
Oh, wow.
What?
First
Nobody video.
That's creepy.
In 11 years.
So no one's ever caught this on video?
Never.
Never.
Ever.
Here is my story, and here is what I went through for my research into the paranormal.